Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. Hey guys, I'm extremely excited to bring on today's guest. The guy's a marketing genius. He's actually a dental practice owner, but he's not a dentist. He's owned multiple other businesses. He's a serial entrepreneur, which he's built these other businesses to great heights, sold them, started new ones. So he just really understands the entrepreneurship behind dentistry. He went through all the trials and tribulations that typical entrepreneurs go through before he was a dental practice owner. So he has this really unique perspective that I'm really excited to get you to hear today. So the guest today is Jerry Jones, who's the owner of Jerry Jones Direct, a company that markets and helps dental practices attract and retain patients. He also owns Wellness Springs Dental, a national franchise of dental practices that is helping people all over the country get started owning a dental practice. So first, here are a few things you're going to hear about today. You're going to learn about the most common misconception that new practice owners have, how marketing has evolved over the years, as well as how to get past stigmas that are hurting current practice owners, the average cost to attract a new patient across any media. I think that's a really interesting stat that he shares. A recommendation to all young dentists that are looking to start the practices or a practice owner who is looking to open an office in a new location. Some really expert advice on how to make the most out of your marketing budget. A warning that you shouldn't ignore when shopping for a company to build your website. There's a good chance you'll lose a lot of money if you ignore this. A very powerful way to leverage local press to get free exposure and become an expert in your area. I love this tip. It's a fantastic tip. So you'll learn about an ad campaign that was so successful that it caused a scheduling jam for Jerry. You'll also learn what limiting copy is and why it can be helpful to have in your ads. And at the end of the episode, you're going to find out where you can get a bonus that's filled with even more of Jerry's extremely valuable insight. So be sure to listen all the way through this entire interview to get access to that. Now, here's my interview with Jerry Jones. Hello, ambitious dentists. Today, I have with us the man, the myth, the legend, Jerry Jones. Now, Jerry is unfortunately not the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, which, is a big deal to me because I'm a fan of them. Jerry Jones that owns the Dallas Cowboys is also a Arkansas person, so obviously I have a lot of connections to that. But Jerry Jones I'm incredibly excited to have him on today because he has such a unique story, and he is able to look at dental practices in a way that most dental practice owners can only dream about. So Jerry is the owner of Jerry Jones Direct. He is, which is a company that markets and helps dental practices attract and retain patients. And he does it in some really unique ways that I find are very interesting from a marketing type perspective. He also owns Wellness Springs Dental, which is a national franchise of dental practices that is rolling out right now. And he's helping people all over the country get started with that. And he also owns his own dental practice. But here's the kicker. Jerry is not a dentist. So before he became a dental practice owner, he owned multiple other businesses he'd bought and sold them, built them to great heights, and gone through all the trials and tribulations that an entrepreneur goes through before he was ever a dental practice owner. So he's got this very, very unique perspective that I'm really excited for you guys to be able to hear about today. So Jerry, thank you so much for coming on today.
It's my pleasure, Jonathan. I'm honored to be part of your program.
So I always ask this, did I miss anything in your intro? I try really hard on my intros, but I always seem to be I always feel like I do really poorly at it. And you've got a really good one. So.
No, not at all. I think it's fantastic. And, all I can say is I'm happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So Jerry, for anyone out there that hasn't heard about you and your message, can you tell us a little bit about, where you got started in the world of business and then how you landed inside of dentistry?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's I'll give you the thumbnail sketch, if you will. 22 years ago, landed back here in Salem, Oregon, where I am today. Got a wife, two beautiful young women, also young girls in my house, daughters that, gosh, 10 and 17. So I got a family that keeps me very busy, and my business has been built around that family. So I consider myself lucky not to be a wage slave on a daily basis out there, having to work hard like the guys that are redoing my driveway today. They're working hard. I'm not. So I'm fortunate to be where I am. 22 years ago, started working for a dentist here locally in Salem. He had an interesting business. He was partners with Dr. Woody Oakes and the Profitable Dentist, which many of your listeners have probably heard of. His name is Travis McPhee, and Travis is a dentist still here in town today, and kind of got me started, if you will, in the dental world. And so over those last couple decades, I've built up a pretty nice business that helps dentists attract and retain patients, and then started a dental office 13 years ago. It's a small group office, 3 docs, and a great staff. Nice little business, and we have done well enough at that we've patterned a dental office franchise that we're just rolling out, that's based on the successful operation of that office, and as well as a partner of mine in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, who has a very successful 22 operatory office that does well into $6 million a year plus in revenues. So I've got a great partner there, as well as a chiropractor who has 350 offices, is also a partner with me on this dental office franchise. So the franchise is my excitement right now. It's what keeps me awake at night, and really what I love to focus on. But patient attraction and retention has always been sort of at the root of what I do and what we do here at Jerry Jones Direct. So man, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about whatever you'd like. It's there's hundreds of topics we talk about, so I'm all yours.
No kidding. So the discussion, the way Jerry and I met is we were both presenters at the Startup Practice Blueprint, hosted by Jamie Amos and Ideal Practices. Jamie's got a fantastic podcast, as many of my listeners know. And you gave a really great presentation to a lot of young docs that I think is really going to help them out for many years to come, of really how to look at marketing and how to be able to see that the marketing behind a dental practice is, an imperative part of growth, especially in a startup practice. But we've got a lot of people that are considering startups. We've got a lot of people that have done startups in our audience. We've also got plenty of people that have done practice acquisitions. So what is a common misconception or mistake that people make in their marketing that you wish you could just spread out to the world that to be able to fix?
Well, for startups, it's underestimating the horsepower, i.e. cash, that it takes to get a new practice off the ground. There are startup costs, which, hard costs, like, you have payroll for a certain period of time that you're going to need to fund. You have lease payments that you need to reserve for. You have build out improvements, 10 improvements. Hopefully your landlord is making a bunch of those. There's sundries. Just the opening order for a dental office and what it takes in cotton rolls and Septicane and whatever else you're going to order in that opening order. It's huge, and it's mind-boggling the amount of cash it takes to start a practice. What most don't put enough thought, and I mean real intentional thought into, is the marketing side, is identifying who their ideal patient is, what kind of dentistry they want to deliver, and what they're willing to do to generate the kind of patients that they would love to have in their office. So a lot of folks, let's go back in time a little bit, because history always gives us a good perspective of where we're at today, a better perspective rather. If you go back even 20 years ago, when I first started, marketing was a taboo word in dentistry. It still was. There were dentists that we would hear from regularly in my first business that were, livid about the fact that we were promoting dental marketing, that we were actually saying, hey, doc, it's okay to promote your practice. We would get hate mail, phone calls, faxes, no email because nobody had it. But we would get irate calls from dentists. We would get threats from different state boards that if we were to help a dentist market their practice, we would be in trouble. I mean, just there was a different reality then than what is now. So back then you hung your shingle out and you hoped and prayed that, you were going to get new patients. You were in a good location. You were a provider, an insurance provider. And I mean, all these basic things that we sort of take for granted today. Well, now it's not like that. Unless you are willing to aggressively market your practice, the odds of you being successful are far less than what they were 20 years ago. And 30 years ago, that's really all you did. You just picked a location, you hung a shingle, and the patients showed up. So now it's just, as present day, docs are woefully underestimating what it takes to generate a new patient. I'll give you a number that'll probably put this in perspective. According to the research that I've done and that others have done, i.e., like, for example, Dr. Tom Arendt, Tom and I share statistics and numbers and a lot of things, actually. Tom's a great guy. I've known him for a number of years. Mm-hmm. One of the things we've discovered it to attract a new patient across the any media, a doctor can spend about an average of $250. So that's for a general practice, not a specialty, but a general practice across all media. So if you take that average, it's $250. Add 10 new patients a month over and above what you are seeing today, you need to really be prepared to spend about $2,500 a month. On areas, it'll be less. Some areas, it'll be more. New York City, far higher. Salem, Oregon, probably somewhere in that $1,500 to $2,000 range. Mm-hmm. Someplace like Richland, Washington, where there's one dentist for every 4,000 people, and you might only need to spend $500 a month to attract 10 to 20 new patients. So it's all relative where you're at, what the dental demand is like, so how many dentists there are in the area, and the population's awareness of dental care. So, looking at it, just that one statistic, $250 to attract a new patient. If you want to start out with 100 new patients in your first month, what's your budget? It's $25,000. Right. So, that sounds high, and hopefully that is way too high. But let's say that's just what you should plan on. Well, if your budget calls for $5,000, and it really does take, let's say, 15, you have a $10,000 shortfall. So my recommendation to all young dentists that are looking to start their practices, or for a dentist who's been at the game for a while and is looking at opening a new office in a new location, don't underestimate what it's going to take to fill the practice with new patients. And be sure that you're taking advantage of different concepts that push shares for you. Insurance is a no-brainer. I can't say I'm a fan of insurance, but mm-hmm. what I do is I understand it. It is a tool, and if used properly, like any tool, it can either slice you and bleed you to death, or if it's used properly, it can build an incredible practice. So I do like the utilization of PPOs. I love the utilization of traditional insurance, commercial insurance. I'm even okay with a tiny bit of Medicaid in a practice that is maybe not necessarily set up to accept a huge number of Medicaid patients. Now, there are Medicaid style practices. I have no problem with that. There's a need. It's got to be there. Great. It's a different style of practice. But for the traditional fee-for-service / PPO / traditional insured practice, you need to have a good, healthy mix. In other words, diversity of patient base and diversity of patient attraction mechanisms leads to stability. So, the more diverse your patient base is, the stronger your practice is ultimately going to be. So it's like you, Jonathan, if you just had one type of client, if you just had dentists from only one state, that would be a very bad business model. I would be looking at how do I get dentists from multiple states or just one city. The city has a day of reckoning, major employer drops, a lot of dentists are going to be struggling. So that may in turn affect your practice. So one's a bad number, and diversity is certainly really a good thing in patient and a patient base. That's a long answer for your question, and that's for a startup. There are different approaches for mature practices, and I'd be happy to go into those as well.
Sure. No, that's fantastic. So $250 a patient. We're looking at whenever you're starting a practice out, like you said, use the term 100 new patients. So using $25,000 as a starting line budget, there's companies out there that charge you that just to set up a website. So what do you recommend for those people that are starting out? If they've got $25,000 to put towards a marketing budget, to you, what is the biggest bang for that $25,000?
Well, there isn't one place that I would send a new dentist to rely on just one thing. And again, we're looking at diversity. So should they invest $25,000 into a website? Hell no. I mean, absolutely hell no, no way, no how. There's just no reason to spend that kind of money or invest that kind of money into a website. There's companies out there that'll take 35, 40 grand from you for a website. And then they will promise all of these amazing things are going to happen. And many of those companies are sued for non-performance. So I know I've seen the lawsuits, I've heard about them, I've got clients that have been through these lawsuits. And so I guess my point is, be warned in advance of companies that want long-term commitments and big bucks up front for a website. It's just not required. So my suggestion, if you were starting out, let's just for the sake of argument, let's say your first month's budget was $10,000. I would stratify that budget. I would have maybe $1,500 over here for the website, and that would include maybe $500 in the first month for Google AdWords to test and find out what your message should be. Later on, you should be ready to maybe dedicate $2,000 a month to website stuff. That would include SEO, AdWords, whatever happens in the web world, which is not my world, but whatever happens over there. I would then take an additional $1,500 to $2,000, and if you have a local newspaper with paid circulation, I would head over there. We have a number of new patient strategies that we utilize in newspapers that are just absolutely phenomenal. We've had great success with them in small towns, big communities. It really doesn't matter. New York City to, Adna, Washington. I mean, wherever there's a newspaper, we've had great success with it. So newspaper is a great place to test. And again, we're testing. I would then go over to direct mail, and I would find proven direct mail pieces that have been used by other offices with success. And I would start testing direct mail. And I would probably start out with a budget on direct mail of say $2,500. So, I mean, at this point, we're $2,500 for direct mail, we're $1,500 for a newspaper. So that's $3 grand. What is that? I can't even keep track of my own numbers, but we're under $5 grand. Right around $5 grand. There are other places then to go and test. There's local magazines that may offer viable media to test. There are also some other strategies that we employ at my office for patients that are not insured. I've got this brand new program that we're going to be testing here very shortly. It's to sell and promote our dental health care club. This is a whole nother patient retention strategy, but it also works on the attraction side as well. And we probably don't have time to get into that one, but that's another strategy that you could also test. But I mean, I would definitely be newspaper. I'd be doing some direct mail, definitely website. And those are the first three places that you can get started. There are obviously grand openings that you can conduct. You can put some of your budget towards. There are annual summertime events where you're driving your patients or prospective patients to for a fun experience with their children. But again, that depends on the kind of practice you have. And the list goes on and on. I mean, there's hundreds of ways to generate new patients, but those are the big three that I would look at fairly quickly right out of the gate.
And so you said.
I'm sorry, one other thing. And there's always the free opportunity for press. So free press. So press releases and an aggressive approach with local press and saying, hey, I'd love to be your doctor. When you guys have a question about oral health and you want to run an article or you want to have an expert interview, let me be your expert. I would be happy to. So it's opening yourself up to local media and then providing them news that they can use in print. So that's a no-brainer.
So things like being the first practice in your small town that has a CEREC machine or something like that would be something you'd want to pitch to someone that you might know at the local news station. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly. I would be more inclined to look for stories that are in the headlines that involve my avatar client. So let's say, for example, I'm a pediatric dentist, and recently there's been a couple of unfortunate deaths from sedation practices in pediatric dental offices. So if I were offering sedation as a pediatric dentist, which most do, then I would want to be someone who is commenting or providing educational content to the news outlet for their story on this national story, but as it relates to a local person. So I'm more interested in seeing things like that because they're far more powerful than saying, hey, I got a brand new E4D or CEREC machine, isn't it cool? And that means you'll only be here for one visit instead of two. Frankly, I want patients coming back as often as I can. So I have a different perspective with CEREC and the E4D than most folks have, but then again, I'm a little bit weird on a lot of these things. So definitely looking at what's going on in the national news and how can I provide information to the local media that would brand me as an expert and open people's eyes to what we do in my particular office.
I love that. That's a fantastic idea. So if anybody's out there listening, take note of that one, because that's an amazing opportunity. There's so if that it makes national headlines, or you see that coming across your Facebook feed and you contact someone in your local media about being an expert on that subject so that you can educate the people in your community, they're going to just jump on it. You're going to be at the top of the list. That's a really, really great idea. So you talked a lot about testing whenever you were mentioning using all these different forms of advertising. I know a lot of my listeners will know what we're talking about there, but for the people that don't know what you mean by testing, how do you test all these different marketing channels and all these different marketing avenues?
Well, to me, all marketing is a test. So no matter if I'm running an ad for the first time or the 50th time, to me, it's a test. And the reason why it's still a test is unless something is absolute and doesn't require a test, which doesn't happen in marketing, which means everything is a test. Basically, you want to roll things out in a controlled fashion, and controlled meaning quantity, cost, in other words, your expense, and what is the result going to be? Because here's the challenge with marketing. You can have something that barely works and you lose your money, or which in dentistry is kind of hard, because even if you get one patient, you're going to break even unless you're an absolute schmuck. So that's kind of the nice thing. It's hard to go broke marketing as a dentist, because that one patient, the lifetime value at least is strong. And then there's the expense side. And then there's the, what if it's too successful? And I've had this happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to a couple of my clients where we've ran an ad and the ad has been so successful, it literally broke our phone systems, and it did it twice. And that's just no joke. I mean, we had so many calls and such a high demand that we broke our phone system in our office 2 different times.
Do you remember what campaign that was, or what?
I sure do. I sure do. It was the first time I ever ran what we call today one of our retro ads. So you probably saw it at Jamie's Ideal Practices event. I showed one of our ads, but the design is very unique, and it's a pattern interrupt. And what I mean by pattern interrupt is when people see it in the mail, it is so different and unique. It's not like everything else, and so it sticks out like a sore thumb. And they literally stop as they're sorting through the paper. Imagine you're standing over your wastebasket and you're sorting through your mail, and something so different stops you, because it's a pattern interrupt. It's not the same full color glossy crap that you see that you're just tossing in the garbage. All of a sudden, here's something that just makes you hit the brakes. So that piece is what did it. It was it was ran in the local newspaper as a freestanding insert. And we had 68 new patients from one campaign that cost me $1,350. So it was like $13 a patient or something like that, if I remember the math right. I mean, it's ridiculous. But the challenge we then had is, how in the hell are we going to see these 68 new patients? And how are we going to see them in a time that is conducive to keeping them? Because a lot of people call a dental office, they have a need, and they don't have a need next month. They have a need right now. And so if you don't have room to put a new patient, or if your book's solid with existing patients and with treatment and recare, you have no room for a new patient, that's a problem. That's a capacity problem, and it can actually kill you, because you need that new blood coming in your practice. You need new patient flow no matter what kind of practice you have. You've got to have the new ones. So then it becomes either a scheduling challenge or a capacity challenge. So those are 2 things, fortunately, we were able to overcome rather quickly, but a lot of docs get themselves in a jam if that does happen. And we have caused a few jams with our marketing over the years where doctors run into that and end up with a capacity issue.
So at what point when you're testing do you decide, okay, this is working, this isn't working as well, and then what do you do after that?
Well, in our at Jerry Jones Direct, one of the things that we do with every ad that we prepare and either mail or publish or release for a doctor for one of our members, those all utilize a unique tracking phone number. So, and we've been doing this for years. This isn't a new technology. I mean, tracking has been around forever. And we've been using it for a long time. We started back when the only way you could track calls was through a 1-800 number. So, I mean, that tells you how long ago we've been tracking. And we would have to wait 30 days to get our statements and sit there and, weed through the statements to find which 1-800 number got how many calls, which ad was that related to. So Today it's far easier.
Yeah.
But we've been
Kids these
tracking
days.
calls. Yeah, we've been tracking calls for a long time. So we determine what is a winner based on the number of phone calls, how those calls are handled, because sometimes we will have a marketing piece that generates the wrong kind of phone calls. And what by that I mean, if we're not careful with what we put in a new patient ad. So, for example, if we don't say something like, unfortunately, we're unable to accept Medicaid patients at this time, then you may very well end up getting a half dozen more calls than you should that disrupt and take away from your team working with patients that you are or want to help, or you're able to help. So sometimes having limiting copy we call it limiting copy on an ad is helpful, and it will deter calls, and sometimes that's a good thing. But going back to this, the testing simply is monitored. We base the decision on whether or not to run an ad based on the production numbers, collections, and those are done 30, 60, 90 days out, 120 days out, versus just pure numbers of calls. How many patients did we schedule? How many calls did we get? So if a $1,500 investment yields 10 phone calls and 8 patients, or 10 phone calls and 15 patients, sometimes that happens. To me, that's kind of a no-brainer. Let's run this again. So we're looking, Jonathan, we're always looking for a minimum of a 2-to-1 ROI in the first 30 to 60 days on our ad expense.
So two to one in the first 30 to 60 days.
Yeah. So if you spend $1,000, and we'll just use simple math. If you spend $1,000, $2,000 comes back. So you have $2,000 in collections, not production, because you can't spend production. We can only spend collections. So $2,000 comes back. That's a 2-to-1 return. And if that's in the first 30, 60, 90 days, what are the odds going to be? And we're playing the odds game here because we're not going to get too far into the weeds on calculating values of new patients. But
Sure.
What are the odds that 2 is going to turn into 4, turn into 6, turn into 8, 10, 12? And you're pretty soon you're a year or 2 years out, and that 2,000 has now turned into 30,000. I mean, who knows what the numbers are going to be, but it's not going to stop at 2,000 unless you're terrible at doing the patient experience thing and handling business in general. Even the most inept should be able to get it from 2,000 to 4,000 fairly quickly, in a period of a year or less.
Sure. So speaking about the, I don't want to say the ineptness of the dental practice ownership side, but having the unique perspective of being a business owner of a separate business, of a large business that was not a dental practice, how has that made you better at being able to attract and retain patients as well as run your business? Or were there any lessons you learned in that first foray into business that has been strengthened you and gotten you able to run your practice better?
If I had to sum it up in one word, and there's absolutely no exceptions to this that I can think of, I'll tell the story that I told to the group in Las Vegas last weekend. You can do almost everything wrong in a dental office, but if you have adequate new patient flow, which equates to marketing, which equates to spending time attracting patients, not thinking about treating them, but actually investing time attracting them. If you can do that, your practice can survive regardless of how terrible of a business person you might be now, while you're being trained to become a better business person. So it all goes back to one word, which is marketing. When I opened my first office 13 years ago, I had no dentist, I had no patients, I had no clinical staff. I didn't even have an office manager or someone to answer the phone. And I had a 5-year lease and $250,000 that I wanted back because I had invested $250,000 and I wanted it back. So one thing I knew going into that is I know I can fill this business with new patients. I know that's not going to be my challenge. So my challenge wasn't what most have as a challenge. Mine was the total opposite. Most are the doctor or they have one. They have a staff. They have, they've made the investment in equipment like I did, but they're starting from a position that I would look at as a strength versus where I started, which was a massive weakness. I don't even have a doctor to do treatment on patients, but I knew I could get the patients in the door if I could find a doc. So it goes back to marketing. All business is marketing. It's marketing centric. It's got to be marketing focused. Without a butt in the seat, you're not doing any dentistry. And so your clinical skills are 100% worthless unless you have a rear end that you can work on, rear end on the seat and the mouth you can work on. So, I mean, if I had to sum it up, it'd all be marketing. Nothing else matters unless you can put a butt in the seat.
And so you have this experience that, people that own marketing companies don't typically have. You actually have your own little test lab of your own dental practice that you've been able to, test things that work in your market and work in your area. One thing that we all know is that marketing works differently in different areas of the country and different demographics, and people react to different things in different ways, but there's always some consistencies involved in that. And so you have this unique experience of actually investing your own money into your own marketing to try and go get more money. So I think that's really interesting. And has that given you any realizations as to how to quickly figure out what's going to work in different markets, or what do you have any insights in regards to that?
Yeah, at this point, when we enter a new marketplace that we're not familiar with, which obviously there are many. I mean, we've operated in all 50 states and a couple of countries, but still there are cities and unique demographics that we have not yet tapped or entered into. Most are going to be, like you said, consistent in a number of ways. There's a constant that we deal with in marketing, no matter what we're selling. It doesn't matter if we're selling dentistry, the high cost and the pain of dentistry, or we're selling OBGYN services, or whatever it is. There's a constant in all of that. And no matter what kind of marketing you do, no matter what your ad says, it always has to answer a very simple question that is in the prospect's mind. What's in it for me? Why should I pick up the phone and call you? So what's in it for me? And if we can appeal to prospective patients and answer that question in our marketing, Mr. or Miss Patient, in our case, we call them guests. We don't refer to patients in my dental office as patients. We refer to them as guests. So we're immediately differentiating ourselves just through languaging. But that's the question you need to answer is, here's what's in it for you for calling my office. Is it low price? Is it we're going to treat you like our mother? Is it we're going to remove all of your fear of coming to a dentist? Whatever it is, I mean, what you have to answer that question. What's in it for me? Why should I call you?
Sure.
Which leads to creating a positioning statement that really says and identifies to the public, here's why you should choose us. So if you can answer what's in it for me for calling, then you can also should be able to answer, here's why we're unique, here's why we're different, here's why you should choose us. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question or not, but I mean, for me, that's well. And I remember one other point I want to make. When we go into a new market, we have a couple of different pieces that we have had at least moderate success with in almost every market we've entered. And so we take those two pieces and we will do a split test right out of the gate. So let's say a doctor calls me and says, Jerry, I need 15 new patients a month. Here's my budget. I'd like to try some direct mail. Fantastic. So we're going to start out with taking his budget, splitting it in half, dedicating one half to a particular type of direct mail piece and the other half to another type of direct mail piece. Each one will have unique tracking numbers, and then we just let the market tell us which one they prefer. We don't let the doctor tell us which one. We don't let the doctor, and we tell the doctor, we're not going to decide for you which one. Let's let the marketplace judge. And so that's where we start. We let the prospective guests or patients know, or rather choose which one is best. And then based on the results of that initial test, then we do another rollout, another test, and we just keep testing and refining and testing and refining.
So does your company help people figure out what message whatever their target is? So for example, if someone's wanting to target, 30 to 40-year-old business professionals, does your company help craft that copy and that language? And if you don't know what copy is, guys, copy is the written word or the message on the marketing piece written out that people are going to read. I don't know where the word copy comes from. You probably do as a marketer, but I've had people ask me what is copy before. So do you have people in your company that help people craft that message, or is there some other way that comes about, or do you just do everything for them?
Well, we do everything for them, number one. But number two, we definitely gather input from the doctor and oftentimes his team, because the doctor may not really identify what he wants precisely, but his team knows. And so we will speak to either the doctor or the person that he delegates those decisions to craft, sort of identify who we're after, and then based on who we're after, we adjust our message. Sometimes a lot, sometimes very little needs to be adjusted. I'll give you an example. We just did an Invisalign postcard campaign for a dentist in New York, and I think we mailed probably 2,500 to 3,000 postcards. It generated 3 consults right away. I'm sure there'll be more coming, but 3 consults. I mean, that's an opportunity to make 15 grand on about a $3,000 investment. So in marketing, so it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, the nice thing there again is if you have one, you're going to at least break even.
Sure.
Getting more than one, you're in the black. So, that's a unique case. And so we crafted that copy on that postcard. The advertising copy on that postcard was crafted for a middle-aged female, with at least, I mean, the mailing list was middle-aged female, $75,000 and up, own their own home. And so that message then was targeted at that person to answer, here's why you should consider braces if you're not happy, or why you should consider Invisalign if you're not happy with how straight your teeth are and how beautiful they look. I mean, that's really what we're after. So pediatrics, we do a lot of pediatric marketing, and so for those, we're selling to mom. We're not selling to the kids, and so the message should not appeal to a child because they're not the buyer. Mama is the buyer. And so having a mom in my home, a wife with and 2 girls, I mean, I've known for a long time what pushes their buttons, what they are looking for in a dental office, and why they would ever call a dental office. I mean, there are certain things that they want to see. And so knowing what those are, it makes crafting that ad copy far easier, and it makes the ads far more effective.
So we have a lot of people that have this idea of bootstrapping marketing in the beginning stages. They'll take input from other people. They will try and figure these things out. And whenever they talk to me, I say, can you do marketing by yourself? You can, but the chances of you being successful are so much more smaller, or so much more abysmally small, due to the fact that you don't have the experience doing it, that you're going to be caught, even though it's cheaper to do it, you're going to be costing yourself money in the long run. Do you have, do people ever, what are your thoughts on the DIYers? I mean, whenever you did your first campaign at the dental practice that you started, was it just the most successful campaign ever? Or did you have to tinker and test and figure out the best way to do things?
Well, let me first say I believe in the DIY aspect to a point. I am one. I get it. I get that desire of wanting to save a dollar everywhere I can, and at the same time reach success as fast as possible. It's really, marketing is not any different than any other pursuit. If you want to be a marketer and you want to be a great marketer, which every dentist should aspire to be a great marketer because it's what will fuel their practice. It's not something you're going to learn overnight, and it's not something that you should experiment with when you're first starting. It is something that you should study and really become an expert at. Because once you learn how to market a business, it doesn't matter what the business is, it's irrelevant. Learn how to sell, you learn how to sell, and it bodes well the rest of your life, and marketing is the same thing. But you have to be cautious. It's very easy to lose a lot of money very quickly in marketing. It's no different than anything else. When you have an equipment repair, most dentists are calling the equipment guys. Number one, it doesn't pay $500 an hour, $600 an hour to do a repair on a chair, when you can write a check to the equipment guy for $200 to include parts, and it's done. And you don't have to deal with it, get your hands dirty, and you don't have to be taken away from dentistry. Marketing is very similar thinking. There are stupid places you can save money. I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean, if you want to save money, buy your clothes at Walmart, I guess. I mean, if you want to save money, buy a new car. You should not shortcut certain things in business. And to me, marketing is one of those things you shouldn't shortcut. Yes, I am selling marketing, But yes, I've also been very successful because I understand marketing and I know how to build a business, and without marketing, you got nothing. So I think it's something they need to become proficient in, new docs, and learn it as they go. And because they're going to have that opportunity a lot in their career to do that, it's not something they want to ignore. But to start off your practice, you only have one chance to make that first impression when you start your practice. You only have one chance to come out of the gate strong. If you come out of the gate weak, it can take you months to recover. If you come out of the gate spending money in the wrong places, you go and invest in a Serac or an E4D for 100 and some thousand, or you go spend 120,000 on a Paralays, and that's not where you should be investing money as a new business owner. You should be investing money in your team and training and making sure that they know how to answer that damn telephone when it rings. You should make sure that you have adequate marketing out there to make the phone ring. That's where the money should be invested. The gadgets are fun, the technology is fun, but it doesn't generate business. In other words, in your terms, it's an expense. It's not an investment. Marketing in my world is an investment because it's something that you can spend money on, build your business, and have really an infinite return. So my thoughts on that.
It's great. And that's great insight too. I hope everyone out there takes that to heart. So tell us a little bit about Jerry Jones Direct. What happens if someone contacts you to be a client of yours? How does that experience work? Or I guess I should say client, because you refer to them as members, or is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. Well, years ago when I started this, we kind of worked with anybody and everybody that darkened our door. I sold the business at one point, and 3 years later, after the non-compete was up, started it back up again. And today we're as we were when I sold it. And certainly probably about 3.5 times as profitable based on changes we made in how we do things. And like dental offices, like my dental office, I have to have a profit. I won't run a business without a profit. So we made some changes, and one of the biggest changes we made was simply we would stop working with everybody and start working only with members. And so anytime we have a new client or an effective member approach us, they become a member if they choose to move forward with us. And then membership entitles you to, I wish I could describe it in one sentence, but it is a hellacious suite of business systems and proven marketing pieces that our members get access to. So if they are a DIYer, which, like, again, I told you, I understand that mentality, I am one, we have an entire suite of services that members can access if they're a DIYer and do it on their own. On the other side, for those who understand their best use of their time is at the chair, generating production, generating revenue, we offer done for you services. And those span from direct mail to patient newsletters to anything offline. If it's online related, we have another company we refer to, but anything that's offline marketing related is something that we focus on. And we've done it dozens and dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of times. So any inquiry starts with us discussing membership and what's in it for them, why they should become a member. And then we take it from there. If they want to do it themselves, we have an entire suite that they can access online and do it that way, or they can have us work with them on a strategic initiative to generate new patients or keep the ones they have. And for the docs that are mature offices, retention is as important and should be invested in as much as new patient attraction. Retention is a big deal. Most offices are losing between 10 and 15% of their patient base a year just through attrition. And if you ignore your patients, they will go away. If you show them that you are investing in them and invested in them, they will stick around. And so we have a number of different ways we help docs manage that retention process as well.
And that's fantastic. And guys, I strive really hard to make sure we get the best in class onto the podcast. And one of the ways I know that's the case for Jerry is, and I hope Dr. Maloli doesn't mind the shout out. I spoke with Dr. Maloli, and he actually said that he's actually a client of Jerry's, and the package is just on a whole nother level. So that's an amazing promotion. That's an amazing testimonial from someone that most of you guys may know as the Relentless Dentist on another podcast where I know we share some listeners. So Jerry's has a fantastic product there, and as well as a service. So tell us a little bit about Wellness Springs. I know that's your current child you're trying to grow. So what's going on with Wellness Springs?
Well, we're in about 30 or 31 states right now where we can offer franchises, and this is a dental office franchise. It's not us owning a part of your practice. It's not us having equity in your business. It's operating franchise. So franchises are offered by a bunch of different industries. I mean, almost any industry these days. There's probably even a CPA franchise out there. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Liberty Tax is a big one. If you ever heard of the H&R Block, I mean, yeah.
So there are a lot of franchises out there, and the neat part about franchising is you get proven business systems, you get training, and you get support. And in dentistry, clinical training is a dime a dozen, and that's not meant as an insult to our clinical educators that are out there. It's just that clinical education is very common. You can get it online, you can get it in person, you can get any kind of clinical training you want. But as far as ongoing, never-ending, relentless, if you will, to borrow David's podcast title, the training that should be taking place that is not in dentistry is on the business side as much as it is on the clinical. So there's a massive imbalance. I mean, if you've got clinical up here and you've got business training like below the screen, there's just nobody providing ongoing support through an association where the better the doctor does, the better the franchise does. Mm-hmm. The worse the doctor does, the worse the franchise does. So it's a situation where the franchisor, which in this case is me, Dr. Jonathan, the better your office does, the better we do. And so we are incentivized heavily to make sure that you are successful as a dentist, not just as a clinical practitioner, but on the business side. And we do that through typical franchise relationships where there's an initial franchise fee paid, there's a royalty paid, and through those efforts that we provide to our franchisees, their businesses are ideally going to grow and ideally going to have higher production, higher revenues, and hopefully at the end of the day, more of what the IRS calls profit. And I'm not guaranteeing that for our franchisees' mind, it's just simply the explanation. So for our franchisees, we put them through, just as an example, when someone signs our franchise agreement, they go through a 5-day, 40-plus hour intensive training. Their entire team is on the same page, getting indoctrinated into the systems and the business training and support that our franchise offers. After that 5-day training is over, they begin a 14-week training period that's done remotely. So in other words, they don't have to leave. The training is delivered to them through telephone or on the internet. After the 14 weeks, then the regular visits begin, where one of our franchise business consultants is appearing at the office on a regular basis, assisting the doctor in ensuring that the systems that we've installed are being operated effectively and that their practice is running at maximum revenue based on what those doctors are telling us their goals are. So it's a very tight business relationship where the better our franchisees do, the better we do, but we're incentivized heavily to make them do well, to help them do well, and to provide the support that requires. So we're completely out of the clinical side, but we're definitely heavily invested in the business side. Everything from the minutia of dental insurance and training your team on dental insurance and the mistakes that can be made there and what should be happening, to the phones being answered, helping the doctor understand what P&Ls, which is your area of expertise, developing them as leaders and working with those doctors on what their future plans are and helping them leverage their dental practices to reach those future plans. So, I mean, to me, it's sort of like the perfect marriage, because we're not buying dental offices. We're not involved in the doctor's clinical decisions. They're maintaining 100% autonomy on the clinical side and on the ownership side. But they have someone that's in business with them. So it's like practicing solo, but they're not alone. And that's really what the franchise is all about, is giving them that support. And really quick, I want to mention our team, our executive team, just phenomenal folks. My longtime business partner, Tom Cowan, is our chief operations officer and one of our financial experts. Tom has built extremely large, very successful, multi-million-dollar organizations. He's a phenomenal leader. Chris Tomczak is a chiropractor. He has 350 offices in chiropractic. He has the largest franchise chiropractic business systems in chiropractic. It's called Health Source. So he's on our team.
That gives me a headache just thinking about 350 practices.
If you can build 350, right? I mean, wow.
No kidding.
And then Dr. Sean Tarpenny, a longtime friend of mine and business partner in the franchise in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Sean's got a $6+ million 22 operatory office, and he and his team really know how to run a business. So we've taken what Sean does really, really well, what my dental office does really, really well. We've combined it, and then we've added the franchise experience and healthcare experience that Dr. Chris Tomczak brings, layered on with the operational excellence of my other business partner, Tom Cowan. So, I mean, it's like the perfect storm, if you will, for dental practices. So we're really excited about it.
Well, fantastic. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for coming on today. If anyone wants to be able to get in contact with you, what's a good way for them to be able to reach out?
Easiest way, head online to either wellnessspringsdental.com, that's the franchise website, or jerryjonesdirect.com. That's the easiest way. My email address is on jerryjonesdirect.com, and you can contact me right through that. So that's probably the easiest way.
Fantastic. Well, anyone out there listening, I urge you to reach out to Jerry and thank him for his time, as well as all of he does for the dental community. He really is a big proponent of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, running your practice like a business, which I am very passionate about as well, which is one of the reasons we do this podcast. So, Jerry, again, thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Jonathan.
A special thanks to Jerry for sharing his valuable wisdom on the show today, as well as sharing some of his very valuable time. So as you heard, there are some things you shouldn't take shortcuts on when it comes to your business, and marketing is one of those things. Jerry provides more of his marketing insight and more in today's bonus. It's a book called, and I love this book title, 24 Mistakes to Not Make When Owning a Dental Practice. That's 24 mistakes to not make when owning a dental practice. So this is an entrepreneur that's written a book about what mistakes to not make when you own a dental practice, based off of his experience being an entrepreneur and owning a dental practice, as well as a bunch of other other businesses. So to get that bonus, simply text practice to 33444. Again, that's practice to 33444, or visit startyourdentalpractice.com/bonus if you're outside of the U.S. You'll also receive updates on the latest episodes of Start Your Dental Practice, helpful tips for owning and running a practice, and promotional opportunities direct to your inbox. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Start Your Dental Practice community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor and go to startyourdentalpractice.com/iTunes to leave your honest feedback and review on iTunes. It's going to help me create a better experience, a better show, a better podcast for you, the ambitious dentist. Your feedback really does help, regardless if you like the show today or not. If you didn't like the show, let me know, because it's going to help me create a better show and podcast for you. Lastly, if you know of anybody that would benefit from today's episode and today's content, today's guest, please feel free to share with them on social media or through email.